Welcome back to the channel. So today we'll be looking at the interesting news of Paul George that was in the news recently about the Clippers are considering trading him and dismantling this whole tandem of him and Kawhi Leonard. And what's intriguing about that is, if you remember, Paul George was the fifth call for Leonard back when he was in the midst of his free agency and what he was going to do. Kawhi was such a standoff personality that when he called the first few guys who were still considered better than Paul George, like KD and things of those kind of players, they weren't too sure what his gauge was. I think he also was trying to reach out to Kyrie as well. And being standoffish most of his career, he did not develop those kind of relationships. So Paul George was someone he was able to speak to and recruit, and he forced his way out of Oklahoma City, which then led him to the Clippers with Kawhi and all the hype there. So really, Paul George took a chance on there with him, and now look what's happening. Because there's no way the Clippers would even consider doing this unless Kawhi Leonard gave some type of green light, because you would not want to do this to your star player, especially if you don't have another star in the pipeline. So this would be a very surprising way to go about it. That's why I do think this could potentially happen. But I think the underlying story is that even though Kawhi Leonard is a quiet person that perceives it's not into the drama and stuff, there is no way the Clippers would okay this. There is no way they would think this is a proper thing to do if it wasn't for the idea of, okay, Kawhi Leonard would be okay with this, because you would not want to alter the franchise in a way he does not see fit, especially when he has to re-sign coming up soon and he has a chance to go elsewhere. You don't want to risk getting him mad, because you've seen what happened with the Spurs. Once he gets turned off from a team, he's done. And you've seen how shady him and Dennis can operate once they get a clear view that we're going to be done with this team. So I think it's very clear that Paul George here needs to watch himself, because, you know, he does his whole podcast and things of that nature, and he's always covering stories. I doubt he'll cover this one because it's a little too close to home here. But yeah, this is an interesting story, because you do wonder, why isn't Kawhi Leonard being perceived the same way that some other stars get perceived? Because best believe, if this was a different superstar that maybe had more of a known name, you would automatically assume, okay, this is the guy that's pulling the strings. He gave the unofficial, official wink, wink to go ahead and search out a possible team for this player. Because where did that report come from? These reports just don't appear out of thin sky. They get it from somewhere, some source within the organization that's kind of testing out a flyer. Maybe they're already in talks with a team and figured, okay, hey, you know what? They're not really giving here, so let's throw out a flyer and get more teams involved. And remember, a lot of things happen before the draft because people value picks more than ever. There could be a player that they've seen at the scouting combines or that they've been watching in college. They have projected to be towards the after the 10th pick in the middle of the draft. You might really want a player, and this could be that one time to get him early into your system, under your wing. So doing anything before the draft could be key. I don't think Paul George will get traded before the draft or during the draft. Most likely after, during the summer, in the heart of free agency, or maybe even towards the end of summer, before they get into really training camps and really getting locked in for the next upcoming season. But it's interesting that the Clippers would float this out there, and it's interesting because if you're Paul George, I would be thinking, man, maybe Kawhi gave a official wink wink because okay, because there's no way the Clippers would want to break this up. And we clearly were better than Phoenix last year, but I just was not there. And if I was there, he probably feels it would be a different story, as would a lot of people do as well, even though he can't predict how guys would play once you put them into the game and what the matchups would be. So very interesting going forward. I'm curious if the Kawhi narrative will continue. It definitely won't. I'll probably be the only one doing it. I mean, there's some that it has to be common sense. He's somewhat behind the scenes pulling the strings here. You do not even float this out there that you're going to trade the guy that he personally recruited. You're going to just trade him away and dismantle that. And then what would you have if you're the Clippers? You're going to trade, you're going to sign back Westbrook and hope you guys can somehow get lucky again? I don't know. Who knows about that? So I don't think Kawhi would want to try to figure that out on the fly with Russell. I highly doubt that. We'll see what happens with Chris Paul. That's also a different angle. But for this story here, it's curious. I wonder why the Clippers float out that story about Paul George. I definitely feel Kawhi Leonard had a little official, unofficial tie up in that where he gave the okay if that so happened. So if you're Paul George, be on notice. I'm curious what happens going forward with this Clippers team as they try to remake their roster for this upcoming season.